good people, and welcome back to Caffeine Conversation. My name is Shar, and I serve as your host, your director of sorts, as we journey through the process of living a successful life after divorce. Yes. So, if you have not seen my introductory video, I will link it below in the comments. Take a look at it so you can get the backstory of how this whole channel was birthed. Before we get started for this week's session, I'm going to call these sessions, I will say, number one, I am not a counselor or a therapist or a life coach. So I want you to remember that I am here sharing my views, my experiences, okay? These are solely the things that I have gone through and experienced and learned and have taken away from therapy and from supportive people in my life, as well as the support group Divorce Care that I was a part of. I talked about that in the introductory video. A culmination of all of those things, and then to add to that the time that I spent alone in prayer, in meditation, in allowing God to speak to me so that I could move past all the things that I was feeling and experiencing while going through my divorce. So that is number one. Number two is that we want this to be a place of positivity, okay? The idea here is to create a place of community so that you can come and give as well as take. If I say something that you don't agree with, please feel free to share why you don't agree or how I could possibly look at something differently, but do it in a way that's respectful. So I just want this to be a space where you can come and be interactive through the comments, of course, but just feel like you're walking away with something that you can actually use, that you can apply in your everyday life. So with that being said, let's get started with this week's session. I think it's okay to call it a session. You may already be going through therapy sessions, and therapy sessions are what, about an hour? We're not gonna be that long here. The goal was to stay between 15 and 20 minutes because I don't want to bore you. But I just want you to come and just grab quick nuggets, tidbits that you can use as you're moving through the process of separation and divorce. So this week we're going to talk about emotions. All of the emotions that you feel. But we're going to pinpoint just a few in this session. I will say that I felt like I was feeling sometimes all the emotions at the same time, right? It's like this roller coaster, right? You've got the highs and the lows and the turns and the twists, and some days you're just and then you can't get off, and you're wanting to get off, but you can't because you're going through what you're going through at this particular time. So the first and probably the greatest emotion that I know I felt, and you're probably feeling it too, is anger. Yeah. And I think as anger stews, it turns into bitterness. And I think bitterness is what causes your heart to become hardened and cold and callous. So the idea is to see anger for what it is, but not react out of a place of anger, and not to stay in a place of anger, right? So I'll just share a personal story with you. Definitely the most angry time that I felt when I was going through divorce. One situation in particular, my now former spouse and we were arguing. It was very volatile, not violent, but very volatile, very hostile. Emotions were extremely high. And for the first time in my life, I saw red. Like, I had heard people say that they've been so mad that they saw red. I never experienced that until that moment. Like, I could visually see red, and my body was hot, and I was trembling, and I was so angry. And at that time, I considered harming him. Look, if we're not going to be honest here, there's really no reason for us to do this. That is honestly how I was feeling at that time. I wanted to cause him harm. And at the time that I was devising a plan, coming up with something, my phone rang. And I looked down at my phone and it was my pastor calling. And I had to stop and I had to laugh. And I remember saying out loud, "Really, God?" Of all people to call at that very moment, at that moment of me wanting to cause him physical harm, my pastor calls. Coincidence? Nah, I don't think so. So I answered the call and he says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, I'm fine." And he totally knew that I was not fine. And he talked to me for a few minutes and he even offered to come over. He knew that we were going through a tough time, but he didn't know at that very moment what was going on. He didn't know we were in an argument. He didn't know that I was trying to come up with a plan to hurt this man. But I know that God spoke to him and led him to call me at that moment. And after being on the phone with him for a few minutes, de-escalation started, right? Because I was already at like 100. And talking to him, things started to calm down. I was beginning to come back into my right frame of mind. I started to think about what the consequence would be of me making this very permanent decision in a temporary situation. And that's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to act out of a place of anger, because what you do in those moments, the consequences of the things that you do can be very permanent, and they can be ones that you can't reverse. Now for me, if I would have went through with the plan that I had come up with to hurt him, I probably would not be sitting in front of you right now talking to you about not acting out of anger. Yeah, I'm sure that I would be detained. I would be in a place that I would not be very happy about. I'd be away from my children and from my family and from my friends. And we just can't make these very permanent decisions in temporary situations, because the goal is to not always feel the anger, right? We don't want to stay in the anger. We are going to feel the anger and we're going to recognize it for what it is. It is a real thing, but we're not going to act out of a place of anger. Okay? All right. So another one that I know I felt a lot was confusion. Like, why? Why is this happening? What did I do to cause this situation that we're currently in, the situation of divorcing? Now, am I a perfect person? Absolutely not. But the one thing that I thought I was a very good wife. And looking back, I can still say that I was a very good wife. So trying to figure out why are you doing this? Why are we going through this? Because the goal is, when you get married, I would say, for most people, is that till death do us part. Who gets married on the intention of getting a divorce? I would hope no one does. I would hope that when you enter into marriage that it is forever. That was definitely my way of thinking. Even at 20, 21 years old when I got married, I was definitely of the frame of mind of forever. So when things started to change in our relationship and there was just a lot of questions and wondering and why is this happening, the confusion of it all was real, and it was a lot for me. And there were so many questions, and many of those questions I still don't have answers to, but you know what? It's okay, because none of the questions changed the outcome. The divorce still happened. So, and when you're asking questions, let me just say this. Please only ask questions that will bring you to a place of healing and not keep you in a place of hurting. Okay? I'm going to say that again. Ask questions that bring you to a place of healing and not keep you in a place of hurting. Example, you're asking questions, and let's just say for example's sake, your divorce is happening because of infidelity, okay? And you're asking questions like, where were you meeting this person? What time were you meeting this person? Was it while I was out of town on a business trip? Was it that time when I went on a trip with my friends? Where did you go? What did you do? What did you eat? What were you wearing? Those type of questions do not bring you, they don't bring you any peace. You think you want to know the details, but you really don't, because finding out all of the details and the facts and the backstory, really, it does more harm than good. So we have to realize that all of the questions may not be answered. There may not be closure for you. You may walk away or in the marriage and not fully grasp why it ended. I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but you still may walk away from it feeling like, I still don't understand why. I don't have closure. And sometimes you're just not going to get that closure, okay? So confusion is definitely one. And the last one that I'm going to touch on, and it's a real feeling, is grief. You are grieving the loss of a marriage. And I've heard many people equate it to death. And I can definitely understand that. But the difference is that person is not buried 6 feet under. You're still having to see this person. If you have children, you're still having to deal with this person. You have to co-parent with this person. You're doing pickups and drop-offs and still having to make decisions about your children or about your affairs, your homes and cars and businesses and that type of thing. So you're still having to interact with this person, probably day in, day out for a very long time. So you are grieving the loss of love. You are grieving the loss of a union. You're grieving the loss of a teammate. You're grieving the loss of something that you valued so much and something that you never wanted it to end. But it's ending, and you are definitely feeling the loss. And it's okay to feel that. I think it's definitely part of the process. And allow yourself, I always say, feel all the feelings, but don't stay in all the feelings, okay? It's good for us to acknowledge the way that we're feeling so that we can say, okay, I'm definitely grieving right now. How do I move through this? Because I don't want to stay in this place. Is that okay? Yes. So that is what we're going to touch on this week. So we touched on anger, we touched on confusion, and we touched on grief. And there are so many more. I mean, I felt like during that time that my mind was a junkyard of thoughts and that my body was carrying all of the feelings and all of the emotions, and you feel fatigued during that time. Your energy is low, your productivity is probably low, and unfortunately, it's part of the process. But the goal is to move through the process and to move through the fog that you're feeling in your mind, the fatigue and the weight that you're feeling in your body. You want that junkyard to get cleaned out so that you can move to a place that brings you peace and wholeness and wellness and joy, because there is life on the other side of divorce. Divorce is not terminal. It is not terminal. And being single is not a sickness. So, with all that I said today, I hope that you can take one thing, two things, a couple things, and just apply it to wherever you are in the process. You may be like freshly going through, like you're in the separation stage, you haven't even filed yet. Or maybe you have been divorced for quite some time, but you're still feeling all the feelings and you don't want to feel them anymore. This is where I come in and just kind of help you along the way. So I'm so glad that you guys joined me today. And before you leave, please take a moment to leave a comment if you can. But even more importantly than that, subscribe. So hit that subscribe button and then hit that little bell so you will know when I upload new content. And the goal is to be back very soon. I am going to set a goal of 2 videos a month. So this is the first video for June. So we've got one more to do for this month. And if you have things that you want to talk about, if there's something that you want me to talk about, let me know. Just put it in the comments, because this is our space. This is our community. And I want you to be involved with it. So until we meet again, be well, because the goal is to always be well.